Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most important processes in any business, order to cash. Think of it as the financial engine that turns a simple click into actual, cold, hard cash in the bank. It's a really critical journey, and we're going to walk through it together, step by step. So let's start with a little puzzle. Imagine this. A company just made a massive $1 million sale. Awesome, right? The sales team is popping champagne. But wait, the boss checks the bank account and nothing. It's empty. How on earth is that possible? Well, it's because a sale isn't the same thing as cash, not even close. The real work, the stuff that actually gets you paid, that all begins after the contract is signed. And that is exactly where order to cash, or O2C as you'll often hear it called, comes into play. It's the entire system, the whole shebang, that takes a customer's order and turns it into actual money in the bank. It's not just some boring admin task. It's literally the lifeblood of a company's financial health. It's what makes sure that a sale on paper becomes real cash you can actually use. All right, so here's what we've got on deck today. First, we'll break down what O2C actually is. Then we'll go through the 4 big steps: managing the order, sending out that all-important invoice, the nitty-gritty of collections, and finally getting that payment. And to wrap it all up, we'll even take a look at what a career in O2C could look like for you. Okay, let's dive into Section 1. We're talking about the financial engine of the company here. This isn't just about shuffling papers. It's about what makes the business run. So, what is O2C really? Put simply, it's every single thing that happens from the moment a customer says, "Yep, I'll take it," all the way through to when their money is safely in your bank account and recorded in your books. And trust me, if any link in this chain breaks, you're looking at delayed payments, grumpy customers, and some pretty serious cash flow headaches. So this diagram here gives you a great bird's eye view of the whole life cycle. See how it starts with managing the order? Then it flows into invoicing, then into that super important phase of monitoring and collections, before finally closing the loop with the payment. We're about to unpack each one of these, so let's get to it. All right, on to step 1, managing the order. This is ground zero. Everything, and I mean everything, that comes after depends on getting this part right. So what actually happens here? Well, 3 key things. First up, the credit assessment. This is basically the company doing its homework and asking, hey, can this customer actually pay us? It's a huge step in managing risk. Next, you have order entry. This is where someone has to type all the order details into the main system like SAP. It has to be perfect. And finally, you've got logistics coordination. You got to talk to the warehouse and shipping folks to make sure the product can actually be delivered on time. And here we go, a little peek behind the scenes. This is what it looks like to create a sales order in a big system like SAP. This screen right here, this is where it all begins. All the critical info, who the customer is, what they bought, how much it costs, it all goes in here. And you can bet that accuracy is everything. One little mistake here can cause a huge mess down the line. Okay, so the product is out the door. Now what? Well, now it's time to actually ask for the money. And that happens with the invoice. Think of it as the starting pistol for the race to get paid. Now, an invoice isn't just a simple request. It's a formal legal document, so it has to be spot on. You need all the key pieces: the names, the dates, a clear description of the goods, and of course the final amount due. Why is this so important? Because any little mistake, and I mean any mistake, gives the customer a perfect excuse to not pay you on time. And speaking of what's on the invoice, let's talk about sales VAT for a second. This is super important to understand. That money? It's not the company's. Nope. The company is just acting like a collection agent for the government. They collect it from the customer, hold on to it for a little bit, and then they have to hand it over. That's why it's tracked so carefully. Okay, the invoice is sent. So we can just sit back and wait for the money to roll in, right? Nope, not even close. An unpaid invoice is just a piece of paper with a promise on it. Now comes the hard part: actually securing the cash. So what does that look like? First, you're constantly monitoring all the open invoices, keeping a close eye on their due dates. If a payment is late, that's when a process called dunning starts. It sounds intense, but it's really just the formal process of sending reminders, from a gentle nudge to a more serious letter. And if a customer has a problem, like a pricing error, the team has to jump on it and solve it fast. Otherwise, that payment will just sit there. I really want this quote to sink in for a minute. Sales without collection can lead to bankruptcy. Think about that. It's so powerful because it's so true. It doesn't matter how amazing your sales numbers look if you can't collect the cash. This part of the process isn't just important, it's about survival. And here it is, the final step, the moment we've all been waiting for. The payment has finally hit the bank account. This is where all that hard work pays off, and that paper promise turns into real money. But hold on, it's not quite done yet. There's a little cleanup process. First, the team gets the bank statement showing all the money that came in. Then, the real detailed work begins. They have to match every single payment to the exact customer and the right invoice. Once everything lines up perfectly, the transaction is officially closed, and the customer's account is cleared. Done and dusted. Here's a little look at the accounting magic happening in the background. Think of it like this. On the left, when the invoice goes out, it's like opening a tab for the customer. It creates a receivable. Then on the right, when the payment comes in, that cash closes the tab, the receivable is cleared, the books are balanced, and we're all good. So, we've talked a lot about the process, but who are the people making all this happen? Well, if you're thinking about a career in finance, or maybe you've got an interview coming up, you should really pay attention. O2C is an amazing place to start and build a career. And the career path is actually pretty straightforward. You could start out as a junior accountant. Here, you're on the front lines, making sure all the data is perfect. Think of yourself as a guardian of accuracy. After a few years, you could move up to a senior specialist role. Now you're not just entering data, you're a detective, solving complex problems and analyzing accounts. And from there, the path leads to becoming a team leader or manager, where you're steering the ship and managing the whole process. So what does it take to be great at this? Well, you need a really balanced toolkit. On the tech side, you absolutely need to know your way around systems like SAP and be a pro with Excel. But the soft skills, they're just as important. You've got to be a great communicator, sometimes even a negotiator, when you're talking to customers. And most of all, you need a killer attention to detail. All right, let's do a quick recap of our journey. First, O2C is the whole process that turns a sale into cash. Second, every single step in that chain is vital for a company's financial survival. A smooth O2C cycle isn't just nice to have, it's a huge advantage that keeps cash flowing. And finally, if you're looking for a career, O2C is a fantastic field with real growth potential, where you get to use both your brain for numbers and your people skills. So, I'll leave you with this to chew on. Now that you've seen the whole journey, from that first click all the way to cash in the bank, where do you think the biggest bottleneck is? Which step is most likely to clog up a company's cash flow? Have a think about it. Thanks so much for joining me today.